Say yeah, it feels good, don't it? Damn, it feels good to have people up on it. Say yeah.
Welcome everyone to episode 31 of Community Chronicles, a DDPY community video interview series. My name is Anthony Vignes. It's been a while since I saw you guys, but we don't want to sit here and just pump out content for the sake of content. Sometimes we want to sit around and wait to be inspired. Wait for an idea to pop into our head, inspired by the DDPY community. And that's what brings us to tonight's guest, a guy who I became acquainted with almost 2 years ago through DDPY Tiger Battalion Fitness, Scott French's own regime. We did a push-up challenge to stop soldier suicide. This man is an Air Force veteran and someone that I got to meet, one of the rare few that I got to meet face-to-face earlier this year. I don't know what to say about this man besides you need to listen to his story, and he needs to put it out there. So please welcome Jeremy Vrablic. Welcome, Jeremy.
Yep, thank you, man. Thank you. And that was a great job on the last name.
I was hoping as I was saying it, I'm like, I think this is right.
Yeah, nailed it.
But this is a big deal for Jeremy. Jeremy's not a show-off. Jeremy's not a guy that puts himself out there a lot. But he has a lot of great insight, a lot of great lessons. He's got an inspirational story in himself. So finally pulled him out of his shell just enough to get him to sit down with me here on a Saturday night. And so, Jeremy, I really appreciate you stepping outside your comfort zone, because if it doesn't challenge you, it doesn't change you, right? As Paige McMahon would say. So let's just do what we always do and ask you to give us the background on how you came to find the DDPY program and what that's changed for you since.
Well, yeah. Listen, Anthony, you know I struggle with anxiety, right? Like it's an issue. And this stuff doesn't make me comfortable. Like it's uncomfortable having this attention on me. And, we talk about overcoming things a lot. When you got like this level of anxiety, I am in a shell. There's really only one real way to handle it. And that's, to put yourself in situations where you got to overcome it. So this is essentially what I'm doing. And, I got a lot of respect for you. You know that. So,
well, Jeremy, you came to the right place because there's one person that can help you feel uncomfortable. That's me.
Yeah. Yeah. You asked me to do this. And because you asked me to do this, here I am, because I think highly of you. I'm not the only one. There's a lot of people in the community that think highly of you. So, I'm glad you had me on here. And
glad to have you.
But so I was medically retired after 15 years. I had 3 back surgeries. After the third one, I wasn't healing well. Like I had a lot of scar tissue. And I re-herniated the L5. So the Air Force said, you're done, right? It's over. And that's like a blow, because I did that for so long. Like it was like a huge part of me. And, when they tell you you're done, like what you hear is you're not good enough, and they hit you with that disabled label, right? So your career's over and it's like, okay, well, now what? Like, what do you do now? And I sunk into like a depression. Losing my job, I can get over that. Like what I couldn't get over, like was going through depression, like struggling with that was really hard. We talked last year when we met, like, and I don't share this much, but my father killed himself when he was a kid, or when I was a kid, and he had a lot of issues, like a lot of mental health issues. He struggled with anxiety and depression. He was a paranoid schizophrenic, and he was an addict. He used and he drank, mostly drank. He was an alcoholic, and when he drank, like he put his hands on people. So like he would put his hands on us. It was like super tough. There was a couple of incidences where, it was like it was just chaos and violence, and you see things that kids shouldn't see or experience. And he just had this like really dark side to him. But like he had this whole other side to him when he was like sober and he was healthy. It was amazing. Like he was a great dad. So, I go through that as a kid. I thought a lot, about the kind of dad I wanted to be and the kind of husband I wanted to be. Like, I can remember probably being around 6, and I had just gotten it. And I was sitting on my bed like, no, like, I'm going to live this completely different life. Like, my family, I'm going to have them one day. They're never going to experience this stuff. Like, none of it. They're going to get all the best, none of the worst, right? So then I grow up, and I did. Like, I joined the Air Force. I was different. I had a successful career, and I had my son, and like when I held him that first time, I made these promises to him. Like, you're going to be loved and you're going to be supported. You're always going to have your dad in your life. And it's just, you're not going to see the same things. It's going to be completely different. And I was tested. I deployed to Iraq. About halfway through that tour, I was married to my first wife, and she pulled the plug. Like, marriage is over. And it stung. Like, it hurt. But I think God knew what I didn't at the time, because there's a lot of blessings in my life that happen afterwards. But at the time, it's not what I wanted. And I struggled. My thoughts were all over the place. Like, it wasn't good. And this is kind of where like my past is a blessing, because I remembered those promises that I made to him. Like, I'm always going to be in your life. So I got like crazy focused and did whatever I got to do to get home to him. I just locked in, got zeroed in, and I made it home. Right. So I ended up getting custody of him 50-50 at first, full eventually. And he just got the best of me. When I wasn't at work, I was with him, and I don't know, we were just so active, like so active. And I was running around doing all kinds of stuff with him. And a couple years later, we meet Jess, and we get married, and man, life is just really good. And then it happened, like I get hurt. I get the 3rd back surgery. I'm not healing well. Like, I'm starting to struggle. This is right around the time me and Jess start having kids. So I got the 2 younger boys, and I made them the same promises, but I wasn't keeping them, or I didn't feel like I could keep them. Like, I was really hurt physically. I wasn't moving around well. And, I was struggling with depression, and I knew it, and like, I'm really dependent on these pain pills. Like, if I'm being honest, I was an addict. I was addicted to them. And it put me like closer to being like that dark side of my father that I felt comfortable with, because I've been running from that for so long, and now here I am. And I think, you're in survival mode for so long, right? It's that fight or flight response. And like, you've just been in the fight for like so long, and I just got like really tired. But it's fight, flight, or hide. Most people don't know the hide part, and that's what I started doing. Like, I started to isolate myself from my family and my boys. I just didn't want to be around anybody, and like, that isolation starts messing with you. So it's taking shots at me, and like like with my past stuff like that. Like, when you're in pain, your mind's funny in a way that like it'll start recalling other times when you've been in that kind of pain. So it starts kicking up, like the way I grew up in Iraq, and the things that I'm going through right now. This is all stuff that I've never dealt with. And now I'm dealing with it all at once. And I don't talk to people. Like, I've always handled my stuff by myself. And I've had success, but I'm not having success, right? I don't know, it just got like really bad, really dark. And then those thoughts start coming, like you're nothing and you're nobody, and your kids deserve better, and maybe everybody would be better off if you run around, like if you just ended it. I think if I could have pressed fast forward on my life to get to the end, I would have done it. But there's this like divine intervention. Somebody I really respected and really admired came out and talked about their battles with depression, right? And he's talking about it, and it's everything that I'm going through in the moment. But he just didn't stop there. Like, he talked about how he got out of it, and a lot of it was like his spiritual growth and his mental growth and like physical growth, because that's what makes us up, right? And again, my past is a blessing in that I thought about my father, and he had a lot of issues, and it was really hard, and it was bad, but he was my dad. There's so many times in my life that I wish he was around, or things that I've gone through where it's like, man, it would be nice to have my dad around. But so that's me as a kid feeling that way. And I looked at my kids and I'm like, I'm not at my best. Like, I'm at my worst. And I would imagine, like, even at my worst, my kids, they love me and they still want me around, So it's like, all right, you got to get up. Like, you got to get up. And Rome wasn't built in a day. And I had this blueprint, this pattern, like, okay, you're going to work on your mind and your body and your spirit. And that's how you're getting out of this. So my wife knew I was struggling. I knew I was struggling, but we didn't talk about it. So she came home that day. We talked about it. We had a conversation, and I went and got help. I started with like a regular counselor who specializes in pain management. And he was great, but I knew I needed more. So I called the VA and got enrolled in like this intensive counseling program. It was a couple hours a week, every week for about a year. And I'm a dummy, Anthony, because I should have done this like years ago. Like, it was so helpful. I'm such an advocate for it. Like, I learned so much about myself. She gave me all these tools that I still use today. And then I got accepted into a service dog program. I did 4 months of that, and I was blessed with this dog. I don't even like calling her a dog, because she's more than that. Like, nobody loves me. Like, there's different kinds of loves, and different forms and different levels, man. And she just loves me at the highest level. So, there's the mind aspect, and I work on that every day, and that because we talk about it every morning. I get up, like, I got my mental routine, and that's what I work on. But pain's a barrier, right? And I know this. Like, your mind, your body, it works together. As long as I'm walking around in the kind of pain that I'm walking around, because it affects your mood. Like, it just changes you as a person. And it's an issue. And at this point, like, it's the summer of 2019, I think. Like, I had the scar tissue and then inflammatory disease, and I herniated the L5. Well, then I really did it. I herniated my L4. Like, I blew it out so bad that a chunk of it ripped off and got stuck in the nerve canal. And anybody who's got sciatic nerve issues, they know. Like, it's like pain prison. There's no escaping it. Like, whether you're awake, not awake, whatever, every second of your day, you're dealing with this burn. And every time, like, my foot would hit the ground, I'd get like this jolt. Like, it's like electricity. It was horrible. And on top of that, I fractured a vertebrae, right? And the one I fractured, it's in between my shoulder blades. It was my T6. So anytime I'm picking anything up, right? So I'm like in stay-at-home dad mode. I can't, like, every time I gotta take care of my kids. I'm picking them up. I mean, it hurt to breathe. It was horrible. So I don't know, it's just a struggle. But it's 2019. We're in a new neighborhood, a new house. My wife came out one day. I was sitting on the couch, and she's like, it would be nice, if you walk, we're going to the park. It'd be nice if you'd come. And it was like 2 blocks away. And I was like, okay, I'll come. I didn't make it. Like, I didn't make it to the park. So on the way home, I'm crushing myself in my head. Like, you're a loser. You failed your family. You failed your kids. And I love my wife. I was just quiet. And she looks at me and she's like, I know what you're doing, Jeremy. Like, don't do that to yourself. You're in your head. I know what's happening right now. And she meant well. But, like, in my mind, I'm like, dude, you're getting praised for not making it to the park, not playing with your kids, like just trying to get there. Like trying to get to the park is an accomplishment for you. That's how bad it's gotten. So like something's got to give, man. Divine intervention again, right? I get home and I'm on Facebook and I'm just scrolling through and an ad for DDPY pops up. Most people get through or get into DDPY through the Arthur video. And I've seen it, but that wasn't how I got in. It was there was an ad for a guy with a bad back. And like I was worse off than he was. But the way he talked like really resonated with me. He was talking about how anytime he had to do anything, he would think about like how painful it's going to be, right? And how he had to break down everything. Like if he had to go to the grocery store, he thought about how like, okay, now I got to get up, and now I got to get to my shoes, and now I got to put my shoes on, and then I got to get out to the car and get in the car and drive. And you know, he said he thought like an elderly disabled person, and that's like exactly how I thought. It's the same thing. So I'm like, all right, well, let's give it a go. You know, I've tried everything else up until that point. Nothing worked. Like, you know, basically this was it. Like I was out of options. Like this is what we got. So
Yeah, because to be clear for those of you who aren't familiar with Jeremy yet, not a big guy. Never was. You know, he
mm-mm.
came here strictly because of injury. You know, and maybe he'd gotten a little bit soft because of the inactivity, but weight was
Yeah,
never really your battle.
no. I mean, I had, you know, the dad bod, a lot of inactivity for a lot of years. But no, I mean, I did lose 40 pounds. Uh, yeah, it's hard to tell because I carried it all in my gut, but um, you know, the gut's gone. So,
Yeah. So,
but yeah, not a
uh,
weight battle.
what what clicked here once you decided to give DDPY a shot?
Listen, it was a battle, right? Um, you know, it didn't come easy. I started in the bed. You know, I had so much like nerve damage that it hurt to stand in one spot for so long. So, uh, you know, I tried beginner, it just wasn't working. So like, okay, we got to go from the ground up, literally. So I started in the bed, you know, and when I was in the military, like I could, man, I could lift for days and run for miles. And here I am, you know, working out from the ground. And I love Ted Evans, right? And I didn't know who Ted Evans was at the time. I know who he is now, but he's in his 60s, right? And I'm looking up at the screen, this dude's running circles around me. You know, I'm doing advanced. He'd run circles around me now, but at the time I didn't know that, right? So I'm like, oh man, I'm just like, he's not struggling, they're not struggling, but I'm struggling. I'm feeling a certain kind of way about it. And my oldest son, he walks by and he could see how frustrated I was and how hard it was on me psychologically. And he's like, you know, Dad, like where you start isn't important. It's that you started. That's what's important. And he's like, I'm really proud of you, you know? And I was like, oh man, he's right, you know? So I just kept that. And I went from the bed to the chair to standing with the chair. And now I'm in beginner. And, you know, I got the energy. I didn't do well. I didn't make it through it. So I'm doing this yo-yo back and forth between rebuild and energy. And I finally get through energy, right? But for whatever reason, Anthony, it was week 3. Like I couldn't get past week 3. It was like the first fat burner. I couldn't get past it. And this is how great my family is. But, you know, I'm on probably my 4th attempt at week 3. And I'm talking to my wife earlier that day. And I'm like, man, I just never made it this far. Like once I get past this workout, it'll be the farthest that I've made it, you know? And so that night I put on fat burner. And I'm like, man, I just got to do it. I got to do it. Like, I got to get through it. And I don't think I can. Like, I'm not feeling or not thinking highly of myself. And I start to work out. Bro, I got my wife to the right of me and I got my kid to the left of me. Right. And they're like, let's get it, Jeremy. Let's go. Right. And I'm like, all right. You know, so I made it through it. You know, we got through it, and I just kept at it. You know, Rob Ramsey's been a big part of this for me. I think with me, like, because I was out of options. Like, this thing had to work. If it didn't work, I knew how disappointed and crushing it was going to be. So it was almost like I was afraid to give it my all, because you give it your all and it doesn't work, then you got to deal with that disappointment. Plus, I had this fear of like hurting myself more. And I saw Rob Ramsey's post, and it was one person in one post, and he's the first person in the community that I saw was like worse off than I was. And I saw what he did, like where he went from to where he got to. And I'm like, I don't know, it's like that hope fuel and that belief, like it just filled me with it, to the point where I had myself on a leash, and I just took the leash off and went for it. And I haven't looked back, man. It's like, you know, you go from the bed to the chair to beginner to an intermediate to advanced, and now I'm doing all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, I like 3 years ago, I couldn't walk to the freaking park. And, you know, the summer I had like baseball games, amusement parks, water parks, concerts, camping, like it was nonstop, all things that I couldn't do like 3 years ago.
Yeah, so a couple things there. Like the great thing about a guy like Rob, who's got a similar story to yours, right?
Yeah.
Came because of pain, long suffer of injury, and was reliant on pain pills.
Hmm.
Um, and you watch, and I've been following Rob Ramsey for since I started almost 2 years ago. It's hard to come up with an excuse when you watch Rob doing it, knowing
Yeah.
what he's gone through and
Yes.
the physical issues that he has. Like he's not a guy that's going to let you give an excuse for one thing, but
Right.
just knowing what he puts up with on the day to day, and there's so many people like that in the community.
Dude,
Um,
you and I are in a group of 10 people. They're all like that. You know,
yeah, every one of them's got something where it's like, all right, well, if they can do it, like I ain't got it so bad, right? Like
right.
what am I going to say that's going to make it okay for me to not at least try?
There's so much adversity in that group, right? And they still, like, they all go through things that are like really tough, man, especially Murph. And they just get up every day. Like, yeah, they take a knee. Sometimes they get knocked down, but it's not if or it's, you know, it's when they're going to get up. 100% of the time, they're getting up. So you become, I think, in a lot of ways, who you associate with. And I'm associated with like a bunch of fighters, you know?
Yeah.
So, um,
Yeah, because you talked about all those things that as a dad, especially a stay-at-home dad with young kids,
mhm,
that come up during the summertime in particular, where you've got all the baseball games, all the water parks, all the amusement parks, all the camping,
yeah,
all those things that you were saying that you weren't able to do before are all things
mhm,
that I'm checking off in my head that, well, I remember Jeremy doing this year and this year and this year,
mhm,
right? Like you go from not being able to walk to the park to racing your kid down water slides, you
yeah, I
know.
want to.
Well, of course you did. And then what Jeremy motivated me into, we got into a little bit of a pull up. It wasn't a contest; it was more of a challenge.
No, I
Um,
don't think it was more of a challenge. I think like you were pushing me and I was pushing you. You know what I
well, it
mean?
was the
Like
same thing
it
because
was
I mean,
friendly.
I hadn't been able to do them before, and so I
Right,
was for a couple months there. I was just trying to constantly get one more. The next time I do this, I'm going to do one more, and I
yep.
would have been happy stopping at like five. But once Jeremy started doing it, I was like, oh, shit, you know. So this guy now somebody's paying attention, and he pushed me,
Right.
and I went from a guy who had never done a pull up before in his life earlier this spring to being able to do. I think nine is where I maxed out.
Yeah.
And then I fell off the pull up thing. But nine freaking pull ups, I couldn't do a 9 second flexed arm hang as a
Yeah.
teenager.
No, it's amazing, Anthony. Listen, you've had a lot of you've had a, that's what I love about you. Like you've had your own success, right? And you work, but like you quietly work and you got this humility to you, right? And you're such a giving person. And you got like a lot of love and passion and care for this community and the people in it. And I personally think like you should get more shine and highlighted more for the way you contribute. But I also know it's not what moves you.
Yeah,
Like you
it's
wake up
counter
every
to what
day,
I to what pushes me.
Right. You wake up every day just trying to be the best version of yourself for you and your family and your boys. And I don't know, I just admire that. Like you're good people. And then on top of it, you're gaining all this wisdom, and you're studying and you're learning all this stuff and getting all these instructor certifications so that you can help out as many people as you can, like, along the way. I told you, I think highly of you, but I'm not the only one. You got the respect of a lot of people in this community.
Well,
Um,
I
it's
appreciate
just,
that, but enough about me.
yeah.
Uh, no, but that's, yeah, it's not my, it, there are people in my household who wouldn't believe what you just said there about me being more of a,
Yeah, I've been there.
someone who
You're good.
celebrates others' victories,
Yeah,
because, the way you act with your wife and kids is different than the way you act out in the community. But it
yeah,
really
that's
is one
true.
of those things where I try to keep up. I'm here to take care of myself as far as DDPY goes, but as far as the community, um, I get energy off other people's energy.
Hmm.
So just showing, look what I can do all the time, or look how great I'm doing, I don't I don't get the same return from that as I
Hmm.
do from sharing the struggles and
Hmm.
then finding other people with similar struggles and watching them succeed. It motivates
Yeah,
me to succeed. Um, but I really appreciate your kind words, and like you said, we become the people that we associate with the most,
for
and
sure.
that's where I try to
Bunch.
associate with people who are not just like me,
Yeah.
people that have pieces of what I want to be. Um, and it's working, I guess, and it's working for you. I mean, I don't know. Somebody's going to go and look you up now in the DDP Yoga Facebook group and see your 12 pack and go, nah, this fake, deep fake here.
Yeah.
There's no way. But Jeremy now looks like a freaking Instagram influencer. So from a guy who could hardly move here a couple years ago, to now a guy who can, wash laundry on his stomach. It's
Yeah.
pretty damn impressive. So,
The
um,
crazy thing about it, man, is I don't care about any of that. Like, I don't care.
well, of course you don't. Of course you
Yeah.
don't. You can't say that you do, because then
No,
you'd
no,
be a
no, no.
shallow asshole.
Like
Um,
my wife could care less, and I don't walk around with my shirt off. Like, they say you work on your core, it's better for your back. So I'm like, okay, like, we'll work on our core, it's better for our back. And the side effect is a six pack. But honestly, like, like, I'll go to my wife and I'll be like, look, hun, and she's like, yeah, okay. She doesn't really care. So, and
yeah,
she's
I
the
mean,
only one I would
really, at
really
the end
show
of
it
the
off to
day,
anyway.
you're only doing that for one person, and that's the whole
Yeah.
thing. And then when that one person's like, "Oh, yeah, hey, good for you,"
Yeah.
um, then
She's
yeah,
like, I actually kind of like the belly. So I'm
yeah,
like, all right.
right. You're not cuddly anymore.
Yeah.
But so, Jeremy, I don't even know where to begin on the recap of your story there, because I kind of felt like, having heard a lot of it before, that just letting you get it out there was going to be a big step for you and be a big help to this community,
Yeah. It's the first time I did
especially
it, Anthony. So,
highlighting the importance of mental health. That
yeah.
you can't judge a book by its cover. Not everybody who's depressed is morbidly obese. Not everybody that's depressed is a complete hermit and a poor parent, and all. You put on the face you got to put on for those you love, but you got to take the time to work on the inside too, and
Yeah.
that's where you're at. That's the hardest work there is to do. Um, and so I think that more people, when they understand that people with these struggles are out there, hopefully they'll take a step to reach out and get some help themselves and start
For
working
sure.
on what's up here.
Yeah.
So, just in the interest of saving time, because we could go into, guys, we could do this for an hour and a half. But we all know you got places to go and people to see, and we don't want to keep you too long. But if you do want to hear more from Jeremy, reach on out to him, and reach on out to me. Maybe we'll have him back.
Yeah.
But what do you say, Jeremy, that we roll into the rapid fire session of
I knew
our?
rapid fire was coming, and I thought about, like, doing my research and seeing what kind of questions you asked, in previous episodes. But I'm like, screw it, like, just let's make it authentic. You
There's
hit me
something,
with it
even I
again.
didn't do that. There's two that we always repeat, And so, the dozen people that watch these regularly know what those are. But I just wrote some down earlier today as I was thinking. So,
All right, bro, we're ready.
what's the last thing that made you laugh out loud?
The last thing that made me laugh out loud. I think it's obviously my kids, right? They always make me laugh. But I got like nutcrackers in the back here, and I'm in a different room and I hear screaming. I thought my kids are fighting each other. And it's just my one kid playing with the nutcrackers while my other kid is videoing him. And then they just sent me the video, but like, and it's always something to do with my kids. My kids are crazy, like we talk about it. I got 3 boys, and I don't know. It's just laughing all the time with them.
Yeah. With young boys in the house, you're always either laughing or the other one would be the last thing that made you shake your head.
Last thing that made me shake my head.
Just face palm.
I have no idea, dude. Skip it. We'll come back. We'll come back to it.
Who's your favorite author?
My favorite author. I don't read a whole lot. I more listen.
Mm-hmm.
I just read a Brian Dawkins book. Obviously I read Goggins. Like, it's that kind of stuff, like the stuff that's gonna grow me. Goggins is coming out with a new book next month. So it's more that.
For that. All right. So this one is probably for someone who I know, like you, listens to a lot of stuff. Your favorite quote. So if you don't necessarily have to pick a favorite, but the first one that comes to mind.
Dude, these questions, man. Like, I should have done my research. I guess it's not. I just heard it the other day, right? And I don't remember who said it, but it was, there comes a point in your life that what has happened to you has to take a back seat to what's going to happen to you.
Absolutely.
Which is true.
This one, anybody who is at all familiar with you is already going to know the answer to this one. Who is the best all-time Philadelphia Eagle?
Brian Dawkins.
All right. It was a softball for you.
Yeah.
What is your favorite thing to do with your kids?
So I think it's different with all 3, because I got 3 boys with 3 completely different personalities. Mm-hmm. I think with my youngest, it's sports. He's an athlete, so mostly baseball. Baseball's probably my favorite with him. My middle son, he's super intelligent, and he likes to do puzzles and kind of like figure things out. So it's probably that with him. In my oldest, I just have a really good relationship with him, and at least a couple of times a week I'll get the "Hey Dad," and he's like, "I got to talk to you about something," or "I got to talk to you about this." So just the fact that he comes to me for advice like the way he does, and we can have these, because he's 17 now, so
yeah,
we can have these semi grown up conversations, and that he wants to come to me. You know what I mean? It's just so. Just awesome. Talking to him is probably my favorite.
I thought your response was going to be your favorite thing to do with him is embarrass him, because you're pretty good at that. So
love it.
What is your biggest fear?
You're gonna laugh, man. I was in the Air Force, right? Flying in planes.
It works out anyway. Name one ambitious goal that you have for yourself right now.
Ambitious goal, right? Ambitious, you mean like it's kind of lofty, like I may not get
ambitious
there?
As in, yeah, it's a stretch. It's going to take work.
Huh. I don't know. I don't know how healthy I can get. Mm-hmm. I don't know if there's a cap to it or what, because I deal with so much pain and so much physical issues. But I guess it would be that, like, I was talking earlier this week, like I crawl out of bed still, and I don't reach for pain pills anymore. I reach for DDPY, and I do that. But I think I've reduced my pain levels so much, but like to get it to preoperative levels would be amazing.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
that's the definition of ambitious.
Yeah.
All right, what's the worst advice you've ever received?
Come on, man, just one more. Anything that's attached to that is probably not going well, unless it's a push up or a rep. Anything else outside of that, it's not gonna work out.
No. Well, what's the best advice you've ever received?
So I think, man, the mind is powerful, right? And we think we don't have any control, but like we do. Like we control our thoughts. Our thoughts don't control us. And once you realize that, like we control our attitude, our effort, our actions, and our reactions. And I think effort and actions, you kind of know, like that goes without saying, but your attitude, man, it changes so much, Anthony. Like I told you, I wake up, I get out of bed, I don't feel great, and if I just walk through my day like that, like, because pain will make you miserable.
Mm-hmm.
Then it just rubs off on everybody around me. But if I get up and I'm like, no, I'm choosing happiness. And I'm going to choose to have one of those elevated moods. And it's funny because that negativity makes your pain levels worse. But
Absolutely.
you start choosing positive, like it helps with your pain, like it helps you feel better. And I've also noticed, like, that's not just for me. Like my wife is a school teacher. She could struggle with kids all day, just have like the worst day at work. Same thing with my kids, but they come home to somebody who's positive and that they know loves them and cares about them. It'll change their whole day, So I think attitude is a big one, and your reactions.
Yeah.
I got flipped off in traffic the other day. There's a left green arrow and I didn't see it. I was at a red light and he's laying on the horn, and I look back and he's giving me the Jersey salute, and and he's just throwing his hands up and he's flipping out, and I'm looking at him like, I think in the past I might have entertained that a little bit, maybe roll down my window or return the favor, but I didn't. I kind of had this empathy for him, like, man, how horrible is your day going right now that 2 seconds at a traffic light does this, so like I'm really like self-aware now about my reactions and my attitude, especially more than I've ever been.
Yeah, it is a big thing. It is an active choice. You can't just choose that, hey, I'm going to be in a good mood. No, you got to work it a little bit, right? And not let yourself wallow in the negative stuff, because there's always going to be a lot more of that.
Scott French does that attitude of gratitude. That's a big part of it, man. You just get up and you start thinking about like how much you're loved and how many, like there's people around me that love me. And, I'm a man of faith, I'm loved on a different level. And then you start thinking about the things that you're grateful for, and there's just so much, and it just creates that happiness,
That's a great practice to start your day off with. Especially when you are dealing with the pain, you're achy, you got every reason to be in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Start your day off with that gratitude exercise.
Yeah, like I said, it'll elevate your pain levels. If you're in pain,
you enumerated all the things that you have to be grateful for, and then I've got this one thing. Why am I letting this one thing drag me down?
Yep. It's like the ball and chain. Yep.
Absolutely awesome. Well, the other thing, or the next thing that we ask everybody to do here, and you've mentioned a couple of them already, but I'm going to ask you to give a shout out to a member or two of the DDPY community that you think deserves some recognition, and just give us a taste of why.
You said a member or two?
Well, I know you said there's 10, but I don't know. There's a lot.
So why don't we do this? Why don't we just go with the tribe, right? Our tribe.
All right.
So that covers that.
Yeah, and you're gonna make me do it now. I've got to say it.
Yeah.
This is Rob Ramsey, Michael
Rob
Murphy.
Ramsey, Natasha Biggle, Murph, Michael Phelps, Joanna McBride, Artie Eckelman, Debbie Sipko, Scott French, Lisa Big Guns, Rodney Mason, Bob Wright, Megan Malloy, and yourself.
Yeah. See, I would have forgot a couple of them, probably.
I write them down,
self included, but
they're all very important and big in my life for sure. I'm not.
They all bring something different, and
I'm not here without
just a different way.
But I got a couple outside of that. I've been watching Greg Kittle.
Yep.
So I'm a fan of his and what he was able to do with himself. And then like I'm a big fan of like people overcoming themselves. There's a lot of physical transformations in DDPY, and that's great. But it's those mental ones that like really inspire me and get me. And I think like Landry,
Mm-hmm.
you know, he's got overcoming himself, you know, especially with the addiction. And Jade Wagstaff, she's another one. You know, just overcoming herself. All the champions, really, you know, they've all had these great physical transformations, but for me, like, it's their minds, and
Yeah.
they've all done it.
Well, and I mean, having chatted with most of those folks, I mean, there were 11 of them
Right.
this year, but I've had a conversation at one point in time or another with most of them. It's hand in hand. They all had
Yeah.
to make some kind of mental transformation in order to make the physical. So yeah, I could see where it was tough to pick just a few this year, and it's where we ended up with a whole mess of them.
Yeah, but every one of them is worthy for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you weren't one of them, doesn't mean you're not worthy. Just means keep friggin' trying.
You can try.
All right. Well, one last thing, Jeremy, to get us out the door, and that's just
Bang.
give us a bang to shut her down.
Bang.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Remember, whatever you are, be a good
For
one.
money got my happiness, today I'm feeling great. And if you smile all the time, then your face gon' turn that way. Yeah, it feels good, don't it? Damn, it feels good to have people up on and say yeah.